It's been a while since I've done one of these. Well, that's because there was barely any new support cards for the archetype that I've already reviewed. Yeah, could you imagine? Once again, we have no Blue Eyes support cards on the platter today, so that's immediately a plus. So yeah, we have one particular archetype which is making its debut in this series, and I really like the new support wave that they received. So let's start building our way into that archetype, shall we? First off, we gotta start with a card that was released quite a while ago, but I did not include it because the effect is somewhat generic, and that is Exclusion, the double exclusion. As you can see, this counter trap is technically a part of the X-Saber archetype due to its spelling. So yeah, we're looking at it retroactively, and this is, for the record, the only new X-Saber quote-unquote support card. Anyway, it's a good counter to hand traps, but the overabundance of other better options makes it kind of obsolete in my opinion. But hey, even if the opponent does get the free choice for that discard, it's still good enough, since again, Delinquent Duo isn't good enough to be banned to this very day. Anyway, with that out of the way, we move on to our first genuine batch of support cards belonging to the Abyss Actor archetype, starting off with Abyss Actor Liberty Dramatist, a level 4 pendulum with a very weird search and recycle effect for Abyss scripts, given that she will appear on the opponent's side of the field most of the time. But hey, some of the new support is relegated into the fact that you get to pop her with card effects. So yeah, it's something to consider. Then we have Abyss Actor Super Producer, their other new Link monster. And this is a great Link too that most archetypes would die for, so yeah, max out on him at all times. Then we moving on to the spell and trap lineup. First off, we have Abyss Script Dramatic Story. Special summons from deck with a cost that really isn't a cost for the archetype, and a great removal effect when it's popped, just in the tradition of Abyss scripts having really powerful pop effects when they're destroyed by your opponent. So yeah, this one keeps the legacy going. And we have Abyss Actor's Dress Rehearsal, which is simply double searching for one monster and one back row piece, which I don't think needs further elaboration why it's good, so you definitely max out on it. And that does it for Abyss Actors, and I think, yeah, Abyss Actors weren't featured here before. No, wait, they were. They were featured when their Link 1 was first made, if I am correct. Yeah, it's gotta be around that era. But anyway, now we move on to the other archetype, which, well, to our first archetype which makes its debut in this series, and those are Prediction Princesses, if you can actually believe it, with a very versatile bunch of effects, which is evident in their first monster, first non-ritual and only non-ritual main deck monster, Prediction Princess BIBLIOMUSE, which has a surprisingly versatile bunch of effects for a rather under-the-radar archetype, if I do say so myself. The problem, of course, being her level 9, which is very awkward to deal with. But hey, Koinorma exists, so you can make the most out of it by using Koinorma's effect. So yeah, it's definitely worth running, especially with how good their new ritual monster is, the Nether Prediction Princess Terra Wraith. Yeah, it's the same thing as Terra Wraith, but with that added to it. It's really... it makes all the difference. Anyway, it has the potential to be the definitive flip monster boss with the appropriate setup and support, and I imagine that some Subterra players are already experimenting with her, so I guess you can give it the benefit of the doubt that it's the unofficial boss monster of the Subterra archetype, maybe, I don't know. But what definitely helps out in this regard is the new ritual spell, which is specifically needed for this boss monster, even though the ritual spell can ritual summon any Prediction Princess monster, including the original Terra Wraith. And this is the most unique ritual spell thus far, which immensely helps achieve the potential of this new support, like I just said. So anyway, that is it for Prediction Princesses. Like I said, one new ritual spell and ritual monster and a main deck monster. Nothing much, but it definitely adds a lot to this under the radar deck, like I just said. And now we have a whole boatload of Dark World support card which made their debut in their new structure deck. We're starting of course with PERL, Hermit of Dark World, which is a fantastic extender, and it's even better since he can potentially fetch any fiend monster that might have found himself either banished or in the graveyard, which is a definite plus in my opinion. Then we have GENTA, Gateman of Dark World, which is a nice homage to the era of discardable field searchers, and it's essentially an archetypal Gillosaurus as well, which makes his second effect not too shabby either. Then we have the retrain of Rainbow, Supreme Overlord of Dark World, which is by far a definitive replacement for the original, but the best thing about him is definitely its special summoning condition, which is super easy to proc, and the only kind of negative I can point out for this guy is that he is level 8 as opposed to the original, which was level 7, which locks you out of, well, rank 7s and all that. So yeah, anyway, but we're not done with the monster lineup just yet, as we have their new definitive boss monster, Grapha, Dragon Overlord of Dark World, which is a fusion monster, requires the original Grapha as one of the fusion materials plus any dark monster. So yeah, it's a super poly target in Dark Worlds. That might actually make sense considering the anime. Go figure. Anyway, it's phenomenal. It's a great boss monster which allows easy control of your opponent's actions, all while providing you with plethora of other benefits. And like I mentioned, it's a super poly target due to its summoning condition, so there's absolutely no reason not to run this thing. Now we move on to the Spell and Trap lineup, first of which we have Dark World Library, which is an absolute 3-off staple due to how much utility it offers with both of its effects. Then we have Dark World Accession, or yeah, it is Accession, it's supposed to be Accession, right? Which is the archetypal fusion spell, which funnily enough can summon any fiend fusion monster, so it's open for experimentation, so yeah. Anyway, next up we have Dark World Puppet, which offers both benefits to you or graveyard disruption for the opponent, so no reason not to run a few of these. So yeah, everybody loves graveyard disruption nowadays, just like they did in 2015, where this whole concept was a bit more rampant. And lastly, we have Dark World Punishment, a counter trap, which is basically spell speed 3 summon prevention, which has always been commonplace, and this one even comes with a protection effect from the graveyard, so absolutely worth running. What else do I need to tell you? Alright, and that does it for the Dark World batch of new cards with new support. Now we move on to the other smaller set of support, 3 cards in total, which are centered around the Egyptian god cards. First of which we have the Breaking Ruin God, which is the Obelisk support card. And it brings out Obelisk from the hand or the graveyard, and after bringing him out, for one time only, it upgrades his effects in all the right ways. And while it's definitely worth running in a dedicated Obelisk deck, for generic utility, Soul Crossing is still a miles better card. Their next continuous spell is focused around the Winged Dragon of Ra, the true Sun God, in that. A bunch more utility than the last card due to the Ra having obscene amounts of support. Well, unfortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it. And being able to search out Sphere Mode is, well, fantastic. What else do I need to tell you? The second effect, however, is obviously centered around proccing the Immortal Phoenix from your graveyard, which makes pure Raw decks monumentally easier to work with, so it's definitely a 3-off staple in those builds. And finally, we have the Revived Sky God, which I would have almost called it very good if it wasn't for the fact that the opponent gets that huge plus as well. Also, unlike the Obelisk card, this one only pulls from the graveyard, which is definitely sad, so forget this one exists, so in order to move on. And speaking of things that you should forget that they exist, here we have Perfect Great Insect, which is the only new support card for the Moth archetype. It's a fusion of a level 8 insect monster and a level 7 insect monster, or it has its alternative summoning condition where you can tribute an insect monster with 2000 or more defense equipped with an equip card. How awfully specific of you. And that's all fine and dandy, but just like the original concept all those years back, this feels very random even with that decent Raigeki effect it offers. So yeah, moving along. And now we move on to the very obscene amount of ninja support cards that we have received. Ninjas, I think, are also making their debut in this series, if I am correct. Anyway, we start off with Sky Ninja Tobari, which is a fantastic new 1-for-1 target for the archetype, and its second effect opens up a variety of tools for either disrupting the opponent or furthering your own plays. And then we have Insect Ninja MITSU, which besides being a top-tier waifu, as you can see, is a great new extender with a very unique monster effect negation, which synergizes well with the rest of the new support, much like with Green Ninja, which synergizes well with Mitsu as well as the rest of the new support due to being able to flip them face down, since the vast majority of this ninja lineup is focused on flipping themselves face down. Even though their boss monster kind of discourages that, but we'll get to that later. Then we have Beast Ninja Baku, which is another solid extender which turns Summoner Monk into a double special summon from deck for no cost. Since you can normal summon him, discard a Ninjitsu art spell to fetch Hanzo, which will search out this thing. Then it will get special summon due to its effect, and then it will recycle the discarded spell with its effect, making Summoner Monk 1-card Link 3 essentially. So yeah, definitely worth running in dedicated ninja extender builds. Then we have Musket Ninja Kagero, which is a solid fully burial target due to its protection effect, and its first effect provides field presence and synergizes with Mitsu and other new pieces of support. So yeah, definitely worth running in this new iteration of ninjas. And we have Geo the Weighted Ninja, which is a bit unique, so to say the least. It's a Quaking Mirror Force on legs, which is, if it was released much earlier in the game, it would be great, but now it's kind of subpar due to the overabundance of Link monsters, even with Master Rule 5 in effect. Its spot removal is certainly the better of the two effects. However, ninjas have hardly ever been a control deck for this kind of effects to go off consistently. And in terms of this effect, it's outclassed by one of their new boss monsters, YAGURAMARU the Armored Ninja, which is a level 5 fusion monster which requires 2 ninja monsters with different types, and must first be fusion summoned or special summoned from your extra deck by tributing the above cards you control. So it's actually a contact fusion monster. So you can either summon him the old-fashioned way or via contact fusion, so the choice is yours. It's essentially a much better spot removal effect than Geo and much easier to pull off consistently. However, in terms of pure rancid power levels, then it can't even hold a candle to War Ninja Myson. This is a level 6 fusion monster. It also requires 2 different type ninjas to be fusion summoned, and has the exact same summoning condition as well. And yeah, this is the definitive ninja boss monster and a brutal OTK enabler. And on top of that, he can also fetch monsters from the deck. Absolutely max out on this guy. It's most archetypes would wish that they have a boss monster this phenomenal brought to them. Still waiting on that Fortune Lady support, just saying. Anyway, now we're moving on to their spell and trap lineup, first of which being Novel Ninjitsu Art Book. Double searching and recycling and some okay disruption if it gets popped, and this one is really good. Being a quick play also really helps. Then we have Ninjitsu Art Equipment Kanamagura, which has a reusable popping effect, although I'm not too sure that ninjas occupy the graveyard this often for this thing to take advantage of that. But a decent choice nonetheless, essentially, since its second effect furthers your play even more. Then we have a World Shrouded in Darkness, their new archetypal field spell, and I think their only field spell as of now. And it's always treated as a ninjitsu art card, which makes it even more searchable, which is thankfully appreciated since terraforming is at 1. And yeah, due to Mycen's effect, this is a much more applicable spot removal effect than the equip spell. And being a field spell, again, also helps since, as an added bonus, if it gets popped, you also get a soul charge effect. Run 3 at all times and never run any less than that. Finally, you have the continuous trap Ninjitsu Art of Fallen Leaves Dance, which, again, this would be good if the first effect was a continuous one with a once per turn attached to it, but as it is right now, it's a questionable one-off. And that does it for the new ninja support. This is the archetype that has really surprised me how good of a support wave this has been for them, because War Ninja Mycen is absolutely incredible, and yeah, it's really, I would really like to see more cards receive this kind of love in the future. So yeah, it's a great card. This Mycen especially combos well with Blade Armor Ninja, which is ridiculous. So yeah, it's really nicely managed support wave. But anyway, now we move on to the new Noble Knight support cards. But you might be asking yourself, what do we have to look at? No new Noble Knights have come out recently. What are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about the Adventure Token archetype, sub-archetype so to say. And you're asking yourself, wait, how is this a Noble Knight thing? Well, Konami was kind enough to make one of their equip spells a Noble Arms card, thus pulling the entire archetype, well, the series of cards, into the Noble Knights archetype. So without further ado, let's go over the most notable to the lesser notable cards in this segment. First of which we have the only level 3 Water Enchantress of the Temple, which searches out the main cog of the adventure engine, so running 3 of them is an imperative. Then we have Magic Core Warrior of Relics, which aside from his special summoning effect, this isn't even good even for pure adventure builds, because there are a grand total of 2 things this guy can search and only 1 is somewhat useful. So yeah, not good. Then we have Sacred Spirit Vessel THESEA, or THESEA, yeah, that's supposed to be pronounced this way. Anyway, a decent searcher, but only for pure adventure builds, as its restrictions are a bit too crippling for other decks. Then we have Illegal Knight, which has a pretty decent bouncing effect, although it requires cards like Akashic Magician to really shine. And then we have the Wandering Griffin Rider, which is the main reason why the adventure engine exists in the first place, since it's a more easily searchable and special summonable Apex Avian with its negation effect. So yeah, the adventure engine cannot go without this guy. Rite of Aramesir is pretty much in the same boat, as this is the bread and butter of the engine and the whole sub-archetype, which makes it an imperative to be ran at 3. Then we have Fateful Adventure, which, just like with the last card, you can't go without this one, so you also run it at 3. And the last notable card of the adventure engine, which is Dracobag the Rideable Dragon, which is, again, the last card of this famous engine and the best of the 3 equip spells the sub-archetype has to offer due to its bouncing effect, and it also has a self-recursion as a cherry on top. So yeah, good card overall. Then we have Arametir, the Forbidden Spell, which is a continuous version of Rite of Aramesir, which sounds lovely, but its restrictions limited to pure adventure builds only. Then we have Dunel, the Noble Arms of Light, which again is the reason why this series is the part of the Noble Arms archetype and the Noble Knights archetype. It gives an okay attack boost, which, due to how it works, shines more in pure adventure builds. And then we have Starlit Papillon, which is the exact opposite of Dunel, with the same recursion effect. And then we have the 2 field spells, first being Forest of the Lost Flowers, which is meant for builds focused on running Starlit Papillon, and its last effect provides easy access to the other field spell, Zaralam the Dark Palace, which is meant for Dunel builds, as it's a bit more aggressive compared to its control-focused counterpart. And then we have the last 2 cards, of this engine, which are the traps. Breath of Resurrection, which is the only card worth searching with Magic Core, but even with its standalone best feature being able to summon any 2 monsters from your hand or graveyard, I would not call it a staple due to, again, it being a trap, and yeah, it can be a bit too clunky to activate at times. Then we have Thunder Discharge, which is another card that is meant to synergize with Dunel, meaning it's not going to see play outside of pure builds. And that does it for the new Noble Knight / Adventure engine support. So yeah, I'm really digging the aesthetic of the Adventure Token series of cards, and I really would like to see more cards in the same vein, because aesthetically I like it and the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, it's a win-win for me at least. Now we move on to a very small batch of new Naturia support cards, starting with Naturia MOLCRICKET, which is a fantastic 1-for-1 target and a definite 3-off staple no matter the build, given how its effect it can swarm the field literally with new cards. And this is a kind of card that Naturia decks were waiting for ever since they were created, I believe. And it synergizes well with Naturia CAMELLIA, which is an archetypal Armageddon Knight, and again it synergizes with MOLCRICKET to make things even better, so it's definitely worth a few spots in the deck. And the last card that Naturia has received for now is Naturia Spring Breeze, a quick play spell, which is an archetypal fusion spell, formula synchron, and an extension / recovery tool, so you definitely play 3 of these and never any less. So yeah, great card. And then we have the single solitary new Crystal Beast support card, which in the form of the continuous spell Bridge of the Heart, which is an additional normal summon for the archetype, and additional normal summons are always appreciated, and the other effects make Rainbow Dragon builds faster too, so it's definitely worth running in any build variation. So yeah, good card, and it's easily searchable thanks to the other archetypal searchers. Now we move on to the semi-final batch of cards. Well, one's a batch, and then the last one is a single card of the new archetype that received it. Anyway, now we move on to the semi-final batch, which are the new Galaxy / Photon support cards. And we're starting off with Galakuribo, which is a very unique and versatile attack stopper considering how it works, and it also replenishes Xyz materials and gives protection from the graveyard. So it's definitely worth running in a couple of spots. Then we have Galaxy Summoner, an archetypal masked chameleon that enables rank 4 plays, although it would be definitely improved if it could grant you access to rank 8 via this effect. So yeah, but what we have now is far from bad, so definitely run a few copies of this. And we have Photon Emperor, their last main deck monster, and it's a trade-in target that gives you self-recursion and additional normal summons. So you run 3 at all times, never even think about running any less than that. And then we have Galaxy Photon Dragon, the new rank 4, which definitely needs to hit the field as soon as possible, because the utility it offers is phenomenal with how easy it is to summon, considering that it's generic for some reason. So naturally you max out on it at all times, no matter the build. And their last monster, and Xyz monster in general, is Chaos number 62, Neo Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon. Holy shit, Jesus, this name is so long. Anyway, it requires 3 level 8 monsters, or, you know, or rank up magic. Oh wait, it doesn't. It actually doesn't require a rank up magic in order to be summoned. And that is fantastic news, because this thing is the brand new spanking boss monster of the archetype, and definitely something you want to end your board on, because it fires on all cylinders. If it was unaffected by everything, it might have been a little too good, although I kind of wish it was, because yeah, it can be immune to all monster effects and can attack 3 times. This is phenomenal. Always run this guy at... I would personally prefer you to turbo this thing out as fast as possible, and not to mention that Draglobion can also summon this thing as well. So yeah, it's really fantastic piece of support. and a fantastic boss monster for the archetype. But we're not done yet. We still have the spell and trap support to go over through. To be more precise, 2 spells and a trap. First of which we have Galaxy 100, which is graveyard setup on summon and unleash extra deck disruption for the opponent in its second effect, which again is a bit too specific for my like, but if you're one of those hardcore Zexal fans, this is sure to tickle your fancy. Anyway, but the first effect again is worth it, so especially if you, because of Photon Emperor, so you definitely run a copy or 2 of this. And then their last spell card is Numeron Creation, which also falls under the Numeron archetype technically, but yeah. Anyway, it's a very win more card, but it being searchable helps immensely, so you run a copy of 2, a copy or 2 if you feel like it. Well, I actually wouldn't advise running 2 of these since it can be very, very cloggy. So yeah, run a copy if you feel like it. So yeah. And last but certainly not least, in this batch we have Photon Deceleration. With its first effect being nothing special, however, the second effect is one of the most nastiest and most hilarious punishments you can ever suffer from blind MSTing, although it requires you to control a Galaxy Ice Photon Dragon for it, which is completely understandable due to the sheer power of popping this thing while this thing is face down and then instantly succumbing to the end phase of your turn. If this was generic, this would be banned very, very fast, but as it is right now, and it would probably make artifacts jump 6,000% in price if this was generic, so yeah. Anyway, that does it for the Galaxy Eyes worth of batch of support, and now we move on to the final card from the final archetype which received new support, which are Sharks, with the new level 5 main deck monster Dream Shark, which is a really good extender for water-based link climbers or water-based rank 5 XE spammers like Sharks are. And it also has that niche effect damage prevention, which might combo well with Trick Clown if you decide to splash them together. So go for it if you really want to have it that way. And anyway, yeah, that does it for the Archetype Rematch Volume 12, and that wasn't as long as you guys were thinking it would be. Yeah, this was still 60 cards, but I found a new great method to speed these up because, let's be honest, these videos are a bit of a kind of a hassle for me to record because most of the time I have to conjure up a script in my hand, but I actually decided to semi-script this so I always know what to say about each card, because I study each card as it comes around and then I write a few notes down on how the card is best applied and used, so I kind of always know what to say in each situation. So yeah, this helped me immensely, and the future volumes from 13 and onward are going to be really much easier to record and get through. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this new format and hopefully you enjoyed this new volume as a whole, because yeah, this was a very interesting volume indeed for me. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more vid focus and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. Be sure to check out my Patreon when you got the time. Maybe drop a few donations if you feel like it. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. So see you all and have a good day. Peace.